It is going to be the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Stroud boys from Houston. They're coming up here. CJ Stroud is making everyone proud, and he's making every single crowd go wow. So, all of you take a bow here to CJ Stroud. Not in Baltimore, because I know you probably aren't going to do that unless he beats you. But the Texans are coming in with a lot of momentum, seemingly back to back playoff games. CJ Stroud at 22 years old, and then versus the Cleveland Browns, we're like, okay, this is going to be a tough game. The Cleveland Browns are ranked number 1 in total defense. They have Myles Garrett, they have all of these game wreckers on their team. We get a fat whiff of nothing from that defense. CJ Stroud's offense rolls over them. And then you get to the Baltimore Ravens defense, and we fall into the same thing. It's like, well, we just have Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz. All they have to do is slow down him. But is this any different with the Ravens, like coming into Baltimore, or do you see CJ Stroud and the Texans continuing to overachieve versus the elite defenses in the league?
So I think two can be true. I think that they can overachieve, but I still don't take them to win this game because I think that CJ Stroud's going to make throws that only a handful of guys can make in the NFL. And I think that he's going to continue to do that against the Ravens. I believe, if I remember correctly, Vegas has the spread open at plus 10.
9. It's at 9 right now.
Okay, so it's at plus 9. So I think the Texans are going to cover the spread in this game. And I think it's going to be a really great game that we're about to see. But my worry is less about the Texans offense against the Ravens defense. It's more about the Texans defense against Lamar.
Really?
Because when it comes to them, it's a lot easier to game plan for Gardner Minshew and Joe Flacco. But Lamar Jackson, he's proven that countless primetime games. There's certain players that no matter how good your defense performs, they just do amazing things. Whether it be Josh Allen, Patty Mahomes, or Lamar, I think that their defense is the more of a concern there. I don't think necessarily they're going to get walked on by Lamar. I'm not saying that, but I think that Lamar is going to be able to take advantage of that defense and make plays that really are just unguardable. So I still think the Ravens are going to win this game, but I think that the spread of being at plus 9, a little disrespectful to the Texans. I take the Texans to cover, but I will take the Ravens to win close.
Okay. What do the Houston Texans need to do to win this game? Because I do see a path there, and I think it's kind of surprising that you're worried about the Texans defense when their defensive play style lends itself to matching up well against a Texan style team. You have someone like D'Amico Ryans there who has set the mindset. They scored 2 touchdowns on defense last week. They're able to turn over Joe Flacco a couple of times. They're able to slow down a Cleveland Browns defense that just walked all over them. Don't you see their defense being able to show up and slow down someone like a Zay Flowers or Odell Beckham Jr. or Isaiah Likely?
Yeah, I think they can slow them down. I just think that when it comes down to the final moments, when it comes down to a close game, I'm still going to take Lamar Jackson over them. I still think he's going to be able to make certain plays that they won't be able to defend, whether it be him running or him scrambling and finding that open guy, kind of like what we saw in his most recent primetime game.
Yeah.
I think that this is going to be a game that's going to probably be like 28-24. I think that both teams are going to be able to put up points, but I think that I'll still take the Ravens to cover. I think that this is actually a really good matchup head to head.
Yeah.
I take the Ravens just because I think that they have more talent on both sides. And ultimately, although CJ Stroud is playing great, I just think this Ravens team is so complete at this point that it's hard for me to pick them to win.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to pick them to win, and it's definitely hard to pick against the Texans, Whisper, especially with everything you said with Lamar Jackson. However, it's just like with the Texans defense, it seemed like in that game, in all 3 phases of the game, they were able to overwhelm the Cleveland Browns, and it felt like an absolute steamroll in that game, and that's going up against the players like Jerome Ford, Kareem Hunt. That's going up against other elite players like David Njoku, Amari Cooper, and Elijah Moore, who are on that team. And it's going up against the scheme of Kevin Stefanski, who does play some spread offense. It's more like bigger tight ends. However, I just think the pass rush and the defense is so amped up. The Houston Texans are on such a Cinderella run right now where with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, it's not really the weapons around them, around Lamar, that make you go, wow. Like Odell Beckham Jr. has some great moments. Zay Flowers has some good moments. And then Nelson Aguilar, even him, he has some great moments. But at the same time, this is where you look around and you're like, okay, if the Ravens need to rely on a receiver to make a play, you have Odell there and you have Zay Flowers, who's a rookie. And at some points during the season, he's disappeared. And then you have Nelson Aguilar, who's someone who they've relied on. That still scares me. And then for a team that's coming into Baltimore with so much momentum, so little pressure on them, where they're 9-point underdogs in this game, I feel like the defense is going to be able to do enough to slow down Baltimore. And if your offense can take advantage of Baltimore's defense coming out a little bit slow out of the gate, and with CJ Stroud, you talk about the final moment in the game. I haven't seen that signature Lamar Jackson comeback win yet. There's none I can think of where I'm like, okay, that's a situation where all odds were against Lamar and he came through for his team. The only matchup I have in mind with Lamar Jackson that was a signature moment for him, he was driving the ball down the field. They had a chance to win, and he threw an interception versus the Bills, and that ended that game.
I
Where CJ Stroud, he already has those moments
Well, I think he's had plenty of game-winning drives. I think about the Chiefs game 2 years ago when he
The-
had that comeback touchdown.
in the regular season.
The regular season, yeah. I mean, his postseason numbers, he hasn't really performed quite yet, but I think that it's a limited sample size to this point, so
Yeah.
it's hard to assess quite yet. But I think that this game is going to come down to a field goal at the end of it, and really whoever has the ball last, I think, will prevail. I still pick the Ravens at the end of it because I think that
Yeah.
they're the more complete team. I think the momentum is a real thing for the Texans, and I think that that's why the +9 is such a lock for us in
Yeah.
this particular situation. But I take the Ravens. I think that having both the 1 seeds go down seem a little crazy to me. I think that the 49ers are more susceptible to that. So I'll
Yeah.
take the Ravens to win. I think 24-21 is kind of a game that makes sense to me.